1, 2, 3, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube. Baby, we are live. We're live. We are about 35 seconds behind because I had to finish singing a song at the top of my lungs. Just, cause who else doesn't do that? I figured it'd give you a few seconds to, get on board, wake up, kick into gear. Anyway, we are live. Welcome to Wednesday morning. Unless you're on another part of the globe, then it's quite likely, Tuesday night, Tuesday morning, Wednesday morning, way earlier Wednesday morning, maybe even Wednesday afternoon. Who knows? Wherever you are, welcome. Where I am, for a nice change, it's beautiful and sunny. It's a lovely autumn day here in Melbourne. And today we are going to be having a bit of a chit chat about what is strategy. Now, I find that the concept of strategy is one that can be quite different depending on where you go. But the reality is it really just means one thing. What strategy is versus what it is not is it is basically choosing to do business differently than the way you're maybe considered traditionally meant to do it in business, and choosing to serve and act upon different parts of your business differently to how it used to be done. So there's some amazing examples of great strategy in life, in business. It doesn't have to be business related. We were having this conversation on Twitter just yesterday. There is a gentleman called Jeremy Watkins, and he facilitates what is called the customer experience question of the day. And one of the questions that got asked yesterday was, where do you find insights around customer experience outside of your customer experience bubble? And I am privileged to have a customer experience bubble when it comes to the people that I communicate with on Twitter. But there is not much of a customer experience bubble when it comes to how we do business in Australia. So I always find that there's so many aspects of life that we can make transferable into the way we do business. And, when we talk about strategy, that is absolutely no different. There are things that we do in our lives that are strategic for us, that are set up to help us do life better than the next person. And, those strategies are so far and wide, but sometimes they're like way out there. I remember talking to a friend about her dad, and her dad decided, after being a high-flying corporate juggernaut for however many decades, that he was literally going to go and buy a beat-up combi van and travel Australia, and all he does is surfs. And he makes enough money to buy petrol and food, and he parks at beaches, and that is now his life. And that was a strategic move on his behalf. So he decided, I could do life. I could continue being the same as everybody else, but that's not my gig, and that's not how I'm going to differentiate myself. So when you are considering the way that you do business, I want you to also consider, how do you strategically differentiate yourself? The other part about strategy is that it is a conscious choice. It is a conscious awareness of the things that you do differently and a purpose behind doing them differently. And so if you're following along with me, maybe let's talk about some examples, right? Get the creative juices going. So I was thinking about strategic choices, ways to do business that other people haven't quite, or other people might now go and try to mimic or copy, but you know full well that somebody did that first. So let's take for consideration, we joke that I bleed green and red. Oh, hi, Michelle. Good morning. Green and red from the Big Green Shed Bunnings. Let's talk about some of the strategic things, and there's plenty, but just some of the really obvious stuff that they do that is nowadays considered a standard. Other people can't copy it, not the same way. So let's think about one of the first things that comes to mind. Strategically, they run a sausage sizzle every day of the weekend and public holidays. Now, other companies and organizations and retailers throughout the years have now come along and gone, hey, that's a brilliant bloody idea. We're going to do the same. But the thing is, now it's not necessarily that strategic. What they're doing is they're just copying somebody else. And it's quite funny because they know they don't ever, and I promise you, they don't ever get the same result. And even to the point where when I worked at Officeworks, we they did implement the same barbecues, sausage sizzles, but it didn't have the same effect. We didn't have the same foot traffic. People considered the sausage sizzle to be a sacred thing to Bunnings. The amount of memes and things that come out around the Bunnings sausage sizzle is quite hilarious. There was even Onion Gate, when it was decreed that the onion should go underneath the sausage, not on top. It literally made the news all over the country, and I'm pretty sure even overseas. That's how insane a strategy that sausage sizzle is, right? And even if we go inside the store, just simple things like side stacks. So when you're walking down the aisle and you've got those piles, those little pillars of stock, every few feet as you walk down the aisle, they are called side stacks. And they are traditionally, they are strategically put there, and it's rare, if at all, to find another business that does that. So, and if they do, they're probably copying that strategy. So who else have we got? Oh, I love talking about Ikea. My neighbor asked me why I didn't go to Ikea to get some furniture recently. I was like, oh, who could be bothered driving all the way there? But I still love talking about them because they have so many unique strategies that just have obviously helped them become world leaders in what they do. But one of my favorite loathsome strategies, but it works amazingly, and no one really could copy them without everyone knowing where it came from, is their racetrack model of shopping, of retailing. I wrote an article about it a few months ago about the fact that you are consistently pushed forward, and there is such a plethora of items to look at. If you don't come out, it's a little bit like I joke about Kmart. I want to get the Kmart GM to get on my podcast. I might do that. Yeah, let's do that. I love Kmart. But, you go into Kmart for one thing and you come out with like 12 bags and 3 trolleys. And Ikea, the way that they have strategically set up the method of shopping is no different. Like, you're coming out with a couch whether you like it or not, all right? And if you get the kitchen sink, there's probably no shock. But the purpose behind it is that you pretty much you are forced to move through their whole retail offering before getting to the end. So it's a little bit different to, say, for example, a shopping center where you can pick and choose the aisles that you go down. And if you don't want to go down the biscuit aisle, no one's making you. But at Ikea, they strategically said, no, bitch, we're making them go down the biscuit aisle, right? And that is unique to them. So who else have we got? Supermarkets. Have you noticed that supermarkets move staple items? When I worked at Coles, they used to move the eggs and the bread. and on purpose, just cause, and not just cause, because the strategy was that if they moved the staple items, and not all the time, obviously it's a bit of a hike to do that, but they moved them at least once a year. And the premise behind that strategy was a little bit like the Ikea strategy, was that if you think that you're going to go to what you believe was yesterday, the eggs were here and the bread was here, but now there's something else. So now you have this increased likelihood of, number one, seeing new items in place of where your old items were. But now you're also more likely to start strategically strolling, well, not strategically for you, but strategically for them, strolling through the aisles looking for those staple foods, right? And then the likelihood also is that you're going to start to see products that you were potentially blind to or didn't see before. So that is a strategy, right? So when you are working out, and we've talked about this before, journey mapping your customer experience, I want you to very, very much so consider the strategy that you are putting in place to implement a better customer experience, or a different customer experience to the people next to you, right? You could, I think about cafes, right? Back in the day, they probably just used to give you a number. And then someone one day said, actually, I'm going to take their name. I'm going to make them feel like I know them, like they're wanted, like they're needed. And then everybody started going, oh, hey, what's your name? Which is hilarious when your name is Aileen and they look at you like, what? I'm like, so you got to spell it out for them. Bless. But I'm certain that at some point became a strategic change to the way they did business. So what strategy isn't? It isn't just optimizing your business. It isn't just putting in policies and procedures to make business run better. It is putting in ways of doing business to make it run differently, right? I was having a conversation with someone recently about the tourism industry, and we'd gone to a bar, and in the bathroom was a big poster for the Northern Territory. And for those outside of the country, outside of Australia, Northern Territory is like the top point, the pointy part of Australia up the top. Actually, no, that's Queensland. The other part, next to the pointy part. Doesn't matter, get a map. Anyway, their branding and the strategic call to action, and it's very strategic, right? There is no accident about this, is their call to action when it comes to tourism for the Northern Territory. It's called See You in the NT. Now I'm going to let you think about that for a second. See you in the NT, right? And the person I was with was highly offended. Now, as somebody who talks about the joy of sex all the time, I probably am not as offended or easily offended as the person next to me. So, and yes, if you're the first time joining in, when I talk about the joy of sex, I'm talking about CEHX, so customer, employee, and human experience. So I'm a little bit used to kind of going out on the edge, and that is a strategy for me, right? That is a very strategic move. When I do business, I want to get your attention, and I know sex does it. So that's why, and it just works out perfectly that it also revolves around one of my next favorite subjects is customer, employee, and human experience. So it's really like a happy little bundle. We're Bob Rossing it, a happy accident. It really was. When you hear the story of how it came about, it was a happy accident. But it is purely strategic, absolutely strategic. I could talk about just customer experience, and I could talk about just employee experience, and I could talk about just human experience, and I could, and that would be fine. But strategically, that doesn't hit the way I want it to hit. I want to do something different to everybody else. And CEX was already a thing. So I had to really ramp it up and add in the H, right? So it was a strategic move on my part, pick a P word, to create the joy of sex, right? Or bring that back to life with a new meaning. And for you, whether you are a service provider or a manufacturer, or you sell a product, there is absolutely no reason why you can't be strategic, be consciously different to the businesses that you compete with, or that are in the same industry as you. I don't think we compete with anyone. I think we should just compete with ourselves. That's right. Collaborate, not compete. Oh, kumbaya. Anyway, but what does it take to have a strategy? Well, ultimately, you need to have a vision, right? To help you know what your strategy should be, you need to know what your vision is, right? So what's the big picture plan about all this? Well, my big picture plan, my vision, is to help and influence 10 million people, business owners, leaders, and entrepreneurs, to lead a value-driven life, right? But to help them lead a value-driven life, I need to help them understand and help them create a value-driven brand. So the strategy to do that is to help you understand the components of customer, employee, and human experience. Now, as I said before, I could just talk about those components, but is that strategic enough? Is that poignant enough to get my point across? Or are you just going to go, oh yeah, I've heard that, CX, sure, oh yeah, employees, whatever. But when I turn around and go, okay, there has to be a different way to do this, something that gets the return on investment, something that gets your blood pumping, something that shows you the passion that can come from doing this, the ultimate goal of having a value-driven life. I have to come up with a strategy that is going to help you get it, right? And not just get it, but do it. So that is where I strategically come up and I consciously work towards a way of doing business that you go, that's different. Now I've got some buy-in, I've got attention, right? Because this is all it is. It's the attention game. Who can get the attention? Who can get your time? Who can convince you that what they're talking about is a worthwhile activity for you to execute? P.S. It's me. Yeah, go do it. If you need help, call. But that is the point. It is a conscious decision to be different, right? It might actually result in the way I do business being more difficult. And sometimes it is, right? Because people hear the joy of sex and it's quite polarizing, right? People see that racetrack on Ikea and they go like, don't even get me in there, right? You will never get me inside an Ikea. It is quite polarizing, right? People see the sausage sizzle at Bunnings and go, gross. Sometimes you win some, sometimes you lose. But if it is a conscious understanding of what you are trying to achieve that is aligned to your vision, then it is likely that your strategy is going to help you get there quicker and stronger. And then what you need after you've got your strategy is you need your tactics. So the strategy is the what and the tactics are the how, right? If we were to put it into layman's terms. So how do I deliver the strategy of the joy of sex? Well, the tactically how is I create these live broadcasts. I produce content that aligns to my strategy. I live and breathe everything I can around that strategy so that it is everything I'm doing is pushing forward up to that vision. And then everything I do is a conscious act. It's not an accident. It's not a fluke, right? And by all means, so much strategy is created from a fluke where we've tried something, maybe not quite aware of the impact it could have, realized that it actually had an amazing impact. But then it is no longer just a fluke. It is completely your responsibility to turn that into a conscious strategy, right? I was having this conversation with a client the other day about how they started with a little bit of a innovation to help customers with their purchases, and it became actually something that was so well received that it was no longer an innovation anymore. It was now just the way they were doing business. It was a strategic maneuver. So really come to your senses around, what do I do that people froth over? And am I doing it by accident, right? And a Bob Ross moment here and there is great, but grab those Bob Ross moments with both hands and turn them into a conscious and living, breathing strategy that helps differentiate the way you do to the way next to you does business. And then help your customers understand the point behind that strategy, right? Because ultimately you are completing it to build a stronger and more trusted, value-driven brand. And if you're not, get out of business. What are you doing? Go get a job, right? Yes. Yeah. Anyway, that's about it for me today. I just wanted to have a bit of a chit chat about strategy and making sure that we are aware of the things we're doing to create a stronger, healthier, and more unique, consciously driven way of doing business, right? So if you know of any other amazing strategies that you've heard of, or I actually would love to hear about strategies you've implemented in your brand that help you build a better, stronger, more trusted customer experience or employee experience or human experience. What have you done, or what are you going to be implementing after this, now considering what you could do differently, right? Because strategy is a choice to do work differently, right? Well, that is it from me. I will be back next time. Until then, go out and deliver value for somebody else in your life, because what goes around absolutely comes around. I'm Aileen Day. Until next time.